Folks, we got to grab a hold and hold on. We have no choice. Listen to me now. We have no choice but to win this election. They're going to try to steal it. They're going to try to buy it. They're going to do everything they can, lie, cheat, and steal to win this election, like they did in the presidential election. It's impossible. It is what happened. But we're going to get that all corrected. I'm going to tell you, don't give up on it. Come on.
Are you going to fight to make this election right?
Pardon?
Are you going to fight to make this election right?
We're going to fight hard.
What can y'all do on January 6th? Madison said y'all had tricks up your sleeve.
We're going to run to it at the airport. We got to get
Just wait. You see what's coming. You've been reading about it in the House.
The Democrats are not going to.
And we're going to do it in the Senate.
I'm sorry.
I get calls from my father to tell me that the New York Times is calling, but my old partner Eric, who literally has done me harm for I don't know how long, is the one taking the calls because my father will not stop sending the calls to Eric. I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of the, literally, Dr. Patrick Coe, the spy chief of China, who started the company that my partner, who was worth $323 billion, founded, and is now missing. The richest man in the world is missing, who was my partner. He was missing since I last saw him in his $58 million apartment and signed a $4 billion deal to build the largest LNG port in the world. And I am receiving calls from the Southern District of New York, from the U.S. Attorney himself. My best friend in business, Devin, has named me as a witness without telling me in a criminal case, and my father without telling me.
Well, look, we have great confidence in our son. I am not concerned about any accusations been made against him. It's used to get to me. I think it's kind of foul play, but look, it is what it is, and he's a grown man. He is the smartest man I know. I mean, for the pure intellectual capacity, and as long as he's good, we're good.
I don't even know where to start. That is so extraordinary. From last night, the Stephen Colbert interview. It's Friday, the 18th of December, the year of our Lord 2020. You're in the War Room live from our nation's capital. It is the day that the Director of National Intelligence is ordered under an executive order from 2018 that elections are now national security issues. He is ordered 45 days after the election to deliver a report to the President of the United States discussing a foreign interference in the 2020 election. And you've heard all this analysis out there about the CIA slow walking it. We're going to keep on top of that story because this is all inextricably linked. Okay, you know, the John Fredericks Radio Network, Real America's Voice, which is Dish Channel 219, Comcast 113, G News, GTV, Rumble. By the way, I think we've got 200,000 signups in Rumble, 300,000 in YouTube. Every platform in the known world. The show's the biggest show in the world. Goes through the firewall into China, allowed by Xing. Old 100 names. Can't get enough of this. And I know for the last month or so we've been very focused. We started the war of impeachment, war and pandemic, and we do talk about this pandemic, the financial crisis it triggered, the capital markets crisis, the geopolitical crisis, and now the political crisis. That's why we're so focused on this election, because as the flag officers that sent the letter to Trump back in September said it's the most important election in the history of the republic. That's not us. That was these flag officers, that I think 250 flag officers. It is the most important election in China in 5,000 years because the people fighting for their freedom in China want to make sure that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, does not totally engulf the United States. And I want to go back to this, to our cold open. The cold open is what this election's all about. And the cold open, and just for Colbert, Colbert is one of these guys like Clooney. They're actors of de minimis intelligence, and Colbert wants to be a player. He wants to be an intellectual. He wants to be a political player. He wants all that. He's a clown. He showed it was a clown. I think his sister ran for Congress, got blown up down there in South Carolina. But last night, he talked about this is not even coach pitch. This is literally T-ball, right? This is T-ball. And here's the beauty for our this shows you we're winning. Because the tell is they can't even come back and ask any detailed questions. It's like Colbert never saw any of the evidence in the hard drive from hell. Oh, yeah, that's right, the Russian disinformation thing. That would be wrong. The intelligence professionals put it out there are all liars. Everyone in that list is a liar. They didn't make a mistake. They knew what they were doing, trying to do a misdirection play. It's a lot of things, but one thing it ain't is a disinformation campaign from Russia. The hard drive from hell, not one document that Jack Maxey's put out, not one wire transfer, not one signed term sheet, not one signed engagement letter, not one email, and including the audio you heard of Hunter Biden. And what is Hunter Biden saying? I get calls from my dad all the time telling me about the New York Times, calling him, asking about our relationship with Patrick Ho. And he refers to Patrick Ho incorrectly, but in his life it was correct, the spy chief of China. He was the spy chief of that operation being the compromise of the Biden crime family. So he was the spy chief of that operation. He's not the entire spy chief of all China. But Patrick Ho is an intelligence officer, right? Another one of these phony companies, the CEFC, the China Energy Trading Company that became worth, a couple of $100 billion. The guy he's talking about, the chairman, who now sleeps with the fishes, everybody out of China tells us, in the Yangtze River. It sleeps in the Yangtze, as Rudy Giuliani so lovely describes it. The chairman, he calls him the richest guy in China, just signed, got a $50 million apartment, all that. That's my partner. That's not Jack Maxey's voice. That's not Steve Bannon's voice. That's Hunter Biden's voice. And Hunter Biden, clearly, he's calling his buddy to complain about his dad because his dad's calling him and not getting the New York Times off his back. He's pressing him, hey, the New York Times is calling me about this situation. And Joe Biden says, I don't know anything about it. But the best line's got to be, Hunter Biden is the smartest guy I ever met. Now, you may think a lot about Obama and the Obama administration, everything like that. They had some pretty smart guys. I know the guys in the people in the live chat are melting down right now. No, we have very smart enemies, very smart opposition. Look how they're trying to steal this election. That was smart. The architecture, that's smart. Say what it is. It's smart. We're smarter. We got to get tougher. But he's the smartest guy I ever met. Everything out of Joe Biden's mouth is a lie, right? And Joe, this is about you. Understand it is about you. Because here's the drill, Joe, which is pretty simple. They're monetizing, the business model of the Biden family is quite simple. It is the monetization of access to Joe Biden. That's it. Look, I come from an Irish Catholic family. We're a bunch of hammerhead mix, right? I've seen the guys like the Bidens before. Might have a couple, 3 cousins that remind me of the Bidens. Not the world's smartest guys, right? I love my family, but there's an extended family. There's a couple of guys that don't quite hit the 3-digit IQs. That would be the Biden family, okay? These are just a bunch of stiffs from up in Delaware that have a business model. The business model is they monetize access to Joe Biden. And Jack Maxey's going to join us in a second. He can take you through chapter and verse, or as we refer to it, the receipts. He can take you through the receipts. But to sit there and let Colbert play T-ball, it's foul play. Number one, it's not foul play. And in fact, the investigation of Barr and all these guys later, because Barr will be rolled up in this investigation, is what did you know and when did you know it? And why didn't you come forward? And why did these things start in the spring? Remember, let's go back in time. They got the hard drive from hell. The hard drive from hell was delivered. I think they took possession of it. They signed for it. I think they got possession at the FBI on the 9th of December of 2019. Basically a year ago, 2019. And if Chris Wray, who reports to Barr, would have reported this immediately, and trust me, they knew about it. They all come out in time. They knew about it. Why they know about it? Because you're sitting there with a hard drive. It's got massive amount of information of the compromise of Joe Biden, including when he was compromised during the Obama administration. But more importantly, has been compromised afterwards. When I got brought in this, how did I get brought in this? By Rudy Giuliani and Bob Costello, the head of the hard drive. I got brought in Roy Sumpa. Hey, Bannon knows China. He knows the CCP. Guy's been running around with his hair on fire for a decade talking about it. He was a pain in the ass to everybody in the Trump administration because he's kind of said they're going, they're our mortal enemy. Why don't we get focused on that? Which they did. And I took a look at it in an hour and said, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. Oh my God. The brazenness. The brazenness one, you got to remember, put it in perspective. This is what's so important about this moment in time, and this is why the election was stolen, and this is why, okay, YouTube, I'm officially going to say, on the safe harbor, the official thing was Joe Biden, and on 14th, the Electoral College met, and the 14th, that. And please also note the Vietnam War, the Afghan War, the Warren Commission, the Pearl Harbor Commission, the 9/11 Commission with the 50 pages, no comment, blank pages on Saudi Arabia. I could go on. And give you more government reports that the official line, which later was seen to be a tissue of lies and misrepresentations, right? No, we're in one of the most important inflection points in American history. Yep. We are. Yep. You go back and look at my film, Generation Zero. The framing device for that is a thing called turnings, the fourth turning, by this concept of generational history. Everybody, oh, bad, this is another nutcase. Well, go back and watch it. Go back and read the books. Go pull the books. Look at the concept of the fourth turning. We're in a fourth turning. This is an inflection point of American history, like the Revolution, like the Civil War, like the Great Depression of World War II. We're in another one. We're in the middle of it. Okay? We're in the middle of it. And that's why this is so important. Everything goes back. All roads lead to Beijing. And that's not a conspiracy. Remember, there's no conspiracies, but there's no coincidences. Okay? Joe Biden, remember, you have to remember something. Joe Biden was put in charge of the pivot to Asia by Barack Obama. Why is Joe Biden even on the ticket as the VP? Joe Biden was the neoliberal neocon that was put in charge. But he was the centrist Democrats and the Wall Street Democrats' designated babysitter for this populist called Obama, right? And that's why he was put in charge of the pivot to Asia. Barack Obama knew that we had to decouple from all this madness in the Middle East, right? We had to do it a different way. Trump came up with a different way to do it, but even Obama knew, I got to stop. This is madness. I got to stop this. I got to stop the Cheney, Bush, maniacal, let's send troops over there to just get tied down in this morass. We got to do something different. And by the way, China is the issue, right? China is the issue. Okay, we're going to take a break. I'm going to come back and we'll finally get Jack Maxey on. But we're having a partners discussion today. Also in the partners discussion, all this discussion of the Insurrection Act. Understand something. In Wisconsin, in Georgia, in Arizona, and you decertify those, and Donald J. Trump's election is reaffirmed in January by the House of Representatives. Last time I looked, call me crazy, but those are all Republican legislatures. I don't think we need to call out the Insurrection Act. What we need to do is get focused on winning, on closing the victory. It's time now to get focused. We got, 30 days? Right? 30 days to secure this victory? 30 days. We're burning daylight. The President of the United States gets it. Look at his Twitter feed today. Calling out Mitch McConnell. Calling out the Governor Kemp in Georgia. Okay? That's where the focus has got to be. We're going to return in a minute. Hard drive from hell. Jack Maxey and the entire team. We're going to send a hard drive over to Colbert Day. Let him scroll through it. Be back in a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Oh, it is getting real right now. We have breaking news. Maggie VandenBerghe, the Fog City Midge from Axios, the gossip column of the mainstream media, Mike Allen and Jonathan Swan and the team. Pretty good on scoops. What's the lead story, the screaming lead story they got?
The Pentagon halts Biden transition briefings. Oh my goodness.
Okay, give me the buried lead.
Well, Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller ordered Pentagon-wide halt to cooperation with transition of President-elect Biden, shocking officials across the Defense Department. Basically, they have a why it matters, what happened, and the Pentagon official response, but I can't get into the meat of this, of why they decided to make this decision.
Why don't you quickly read it, and then I'm going to here's why. Tell you why. YouTube, I think, this ain't us saying it. I think that the President of the United States just talked to the Secretary of Defense, Miller, who's a heroic Special Forces guy, and said, he's not the president-elect in my mind, right? It's still unproven that he won. Want to make sure YouTube understands this. That ain't Steve Bannon talking. I believe that's coming from the President of the United States. They're not stopping the defense briefings, right? And one of the reasons they're not stopping the defense briefings, I think we got to get to the bottom of the compromise. Joe Biden right now could not get a confidential security clearance. If he went in right now with the associations with his brothers James, remember, James is the brains of the operation. When I say brains, that's in quotes. Okay? Brains of the operation. He's the one Biden that probably's got a 3-digit IQ. So he's the guy that can, Joe can barely fog a mirror, right? I mean, Joe's thing on Colbert last night was pathetic. And Colbert, intellectual extraordinaire. I shouldn't pick on him too hard. He does have a bachelor's from Northwestern. And he has been in theater. He has been in theater and a stand-up comic. He's done all that. But no, he's a heavy-duty geopolitical expert. I'm going to love playing that interview over and over and over again, right? Just to see the lightweight nature. This is why they're afraid. This is why they're afraid of us. They understand Biden's got to be protected. It's got to have like a cocoon around him. Well, that's not what the job is, and particularly when you've been compromised by the Chinese Communist Party. Let me be brutally frank. Joe Biden's entire family has been bought and paid for by the Chinese Communist Party. I want to bring in Jack Maxey now. Jack is a guy that's drilled down, he and Bob Costa drilled down into the details of the hard drive from hell. And remember, you got all the pornography, and all the pornography is not pornography he pulled off of these sites all over the world. It's his own pornography shot by him on his iPhone, right? And then you got the compromise.
Yeah, and sometimes.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Sometimes he secretly other people too, so he's a really sick fellow. But I want to go back to that recording that you opened with in the last segment. Let's remember that was from late 2018 or maybe the first week or two of 2019. So the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, they knew all about Hunter's troubles 2 years before the election. So if anyone should be angry, it should be all those Democrat candidates who went through the primaries and lost to Joe Biden, while the protection racket run by the Wall Street Journal and New York Times that we know about kept this information from the American public. So we can forget about all this nonsense of Bill Barr saying, oh, for an election integrity, we kept this on the back burner. So
Bill Barr's a total phony. Bill Barr's a total phony. And in the investigation, because there's going to be a special prosecutor named on this, in the investigation, he's going to get wrapped up in the investigation, right, as part of the protection racket. First off, if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, if you ever stroked a check or gave money for Bernie Sanders, and you are not part of our movement right now, you're a sucker. Okay? We don't actually want you in the movement because you're too dumb. Okay? You got played. It's bad enough that you had the pillow fight against Hillary Clinton in 2016 because you had everything that we had, right? But you couldn't bring it home. But that's okay. But the second time, and you got to remember what happened. They got delivery of this thing in December 9th, which, by the way, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, as Jack says, is from 2018, 2019, end of 18, beginning of 19. A year later, they get the hard drive from hell. They bury it. First of the two major events that would have happened. One, we wouldn't have had the impeachment effort, the impeachment trial, because the hard drive from hell does show that Donald Trump's call to the Ukraine guy is a head of Ukraine is perfect. People think Trump's crazy. It was perfect. Number two, Bernie Sanders would be the nominee, the Democratic nominee. So AOC, when they're not voting you on committees and they're laughing at you when you said, hey, we really need to have our thing. Hey, you got played. Ma'am, you got played. And this is all neoliberal neocons, okay? Look at the guys they're putting in there. Look, I know they got the diversity thing for all the ones that don't matter to them, but the ones that matter to them, they got the posse. That's the Wall Street and the neocon group. They got the posse, right? But go back to be the global cop, the same thing. Here's what they want from you, just like they want from the deplorables. Pay your taxes, send your kids to fight in these foreign wars, and keep your mouth shut, okay? Keep your mouth shut. You got played. This shouldn't be Donald Trump about it. Where are you guys? Where's Bernie Sanders? Where's the pie? He's a pie. He is so weak. You're weak. That's why you're not president of the United States. Everybody gave to Bernie. Everybody went to the rallies. Everybody ran around. You guys are a bunch of suckers, okay? You got played. Now it's evident you got played. And Jack Maxey, I love it, the protection racket. It's a racket. Jack, how can Colbert sit there and toss him a thing and have the guy sit there and go, my son did nothing wrong. I'm proud of my son. He's the most brilliant guy I've ever met. It's Colbert's staff. By the way, that's in history. It's going to be embedded. We're going to play it over and over and over again. It's going to be a meme, right? Stephen Colbert sitting there all pompous. Yeah. Hey, the hard drive from hell, you didn't see any of this stuff? Is this how the work you do? You one of the 40% of Democrats that and polling hasn't seen it? The numbers are shifting our way because the American people are smart enough to get, hey, something's not quite right here. Jack, give me your assessment of the hard drive from hell.
The hard drive from hell is really an indictment both of our national security apparatus. I'm talking about the CIA, the FBI. Remember, Peter Strzok and Bill Priestap were heads of counter-espionage when we were looking for a urine-stained mattress in Moscow. And Hunter Biden and his father were selling out the security of the United States for millions and millions of dollars. And it's not just them. We look at the regulators from Wall Street. They were silent as well. We know Bohai Harvest was a complete fraud. We actually have, in their own words from their secret meetings, talking about how the Swedes and the Germans, our NATO allies, targeted them as basically a front operation, wouldn't allow them to do business. This is a frightening example of the Communist Party of China and their attempt, not just attempt, their successful attempt, purchasing the elite, not only in America, but around the world. And the Biden family is compromised, and not just with the Chinese.
Okay, I tell you what we're gonna do. We got to reboot. We got to reboot, Jack. Only at the War Room can we have our wingman and have weeks to get this ready and not have a good connection. Just saying.
I'll tell you what. I'll call you guys up on the hard line. Fine. Terrific.
The ever-crack production team.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Not a problem, Jack. You've only had 3 weeks to get ready for this. Not your fault. It's technology. I know this. But, hey, not that I mind picking it up. This is what it's about. I want to go back. We got a couple minutes till we get Jack back on the phone. I want to go back in a few minutes and look. There's fantasy and there's reality. One thing, Breitbart in here all the time and at the White House in the campaign, I'm inundated with people throwing information at me. And people say, well, how did you cover this? Why don't you cover this? Remember, we're signal, not noise. We could sit here all day long and chase rabbits with you. Hey, it could be kind of fun. There's a lot of fun rabbits out there to chase, a lot of rabbit holes to go down, a lot of things. It's all fun, right? But it doesn't matter. Remember, the watchword here is fights that matter. Fights that matter. And we're into winning. Why are we into winning? We want to save the country. We want to bequeath to our children the same republic that was bequeathed to us, right? Just to make sure in the focus, you got stuff going on in Michigan. You got lawsuits all around. I could get all the guys on here to update us and all this thing. Boom, 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 boom. We're doing this. Yeah, we'll do it later. We got Steve Cortez at 11 o'clock hour. The brilliant Steve Cortez. We are going to talk about finance. We're going to talk about the economy, the global economy, how it plays back here to this election, and we're also going to talk about the numbers. Peter Navarro. But one thing I want to just go back. Victory is right there to be closed on. Donald Trump won YouTube, and the purpose of what we're going through this exercise is to close on that victory. In Wisconsin, and in Georgia, and in Arizona, you flip those, you decertify those, you decertify those, you're at 269. You're going to have a big constitutional argument as a majority, but boom, trust me, get below 270, it's going to the House. In the House, we control the state party delegations. Donald Trump's victory is affirmed, and this is why they're in meltdown. Okay? What Tuberville and people are talking about is a debate that you would have, and it's 2-hour debate per thing, and that's important too. But that's not as important as decertifying these. We don't need the insurrection to do that. We don't. Okay? That's your playing into the hands of the media to make you look like you're crazy. And I love, don't get me wrong, some of the people saying that are people that I hold in the highest esteem. Highest esteem. And I think they're patriots. But right now, in the fog of war, you need clarity. That's what it's called, the fog of war. You need clarity. When you set out to take Vienna, as Napoleon tells his marshals, take Vienna. We're here to close on this. We have a Republican legislature in Wisconsin. We have a Republican legislature in Georgia. We have a Republican legislature in Arizona. Okay? 20,000 votes in Wisconsin, 12,000 so votes in Georgia, 10,000 votes in Arizona. And we have a path to victory in all three. And we don't need the fairy godmother of the Supreme Court to come on and sprinkle magic dust on you. We don't. We have it. We have the receipts. All it is, do we have the will to do it? Simple. Do we have the will to impose our will on this situation? The esteemed Ken Blackwell will join us momentarily after the break to tell us how we do that. Next.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
The problem is that a lot of the things that you just named have been tried in, I think, about 50 cases that were shot down, freezing down the voting machines, all of that. Now, I think that obviously there's a lot of Americans. In fact, 62% of Republicans believe that it's very likely that the Democrats stole the election, as you are arguing. 28% of independents believe that, and 17% of Democrats. So, I mean, the unsettled nature of the reaction to this election is very real.
There's a coordination by the Democrat Party. What I did is put on my Harvard researcher hat. I've got expertise in economics and the law. I looked at thousands of documents, testimony, the like, and what I gleaned was this coordinated strategy to effectively stuff the ballot box with mail-in and absentee ballots, coupled with at times the destruction of Trump ballots. What I found, interestingly, is there's no silver bullet, but this was death by 1,000 cuts, or these 6 dimensions, things like fraud, ballot mishandling. You had vote machine irregularities, statistical anomalies, process file. Well, the president has the authority to appoint a special prosecutor tomorrow.
Is he going to do
that? And I think we need to do that. Look, here's the thing, Martha. If Joe Biden won this election fair and square, I'll be the first to congratulate him and support him in any way that I can. I think every American will do that. But if you read this report carefully, it's granular. No one can ever say again that there's no evidence of irregularities and fraud. There's a mountain of evidence. And I think what happened is somehow we went astray with a lot of our institutions, including the media, the courts, and everyone in between, thinking that they hate Donald Trump so much that somehow the ends justify the means. And I think we're at a really historic moment where we have to really evaluate. If the greatest democracy in world history can't have a fair election in the eyes of its own people and the world, all hope is lost. If you look at that, read that report very carefully, anybody who reads that report will have more questions than answers that they've gotten so far. The other thing, Martha, that really jumps out at you is that the slim Biden victory margins, the alleged victory margins, are dwarfed by the amount of illegal ballots in question. What I think we need to do tomorrow is appoint a special prosecutor to look at this issue. I think the Georgia race needs to be postponed to February because that place is a cesspool of activity. They ran the table on all of these dimensions of irregularities. So we need to do those things, and I think we ought to think about seizing the voting machines out in places like Arizona where there really are big questions.
Okay, that's the great Peter Navarro. About the audience, remember, this is not about us. We're just schmendricks that show up, throw the thing up, and the production crew's great. Do a magnificent job in Denver, the John Frederick Radio Network, and here in the War Room, our team here. That's why we have almost 25 million downloaded podcasts. Is the 6th or 7th way we distribute this. The show's massive, and the reason is because the audience is now becoming a community. You got him on Martha McCallum because it started yesterday with this show, The Immaculate Deception. Everybody in this posse, everybody in this community must read this report. Peter Navarro is a sophisticated PhD from Harvard, and yes, I call him Dr. Navarro because I do believe that guys are PhDs, stuff like that, deserve, if they want to be called doctor, they get to be called doctor. Hey, call me crazy. Dr. Navarro did an amazing, amazing job on this thing, and because of the response from the War Room community, this thing went viral. He had 400 people, I think mainly journalists, on this press call he had at like 1 o'clock, and Alexandra Priet, our comms director, helped do that, but it exploded last night. And that, everybody, we're going to put it up, that interview with Martha McCallum in its totality and in the right order is actually so amazing. That and here's, is that the thing about they're up there about, remember, the mainstream media is in meltdown now. Mainstream media is in meltdown. Forbes magazine came out. Forbes, the great tool of capitalism, I think it's called, right? That's about Forbes, the tool of capitalist. And they say, oh, it's all nonsense. And you go through there, and I told Navarro, I said, blow Forbes up, because Forbes does the same thing. It just talks all happy talk, all these generalities. Get in the specifics, state by state, that Peter Navarro lays out in his 6 key dimensions, and come back and debate that. I said, go crush those guys. Nobody, they don't want to talk about it. They all want to talk in these generalities. It's just like Murphy yesterday about the hearing. Oh, they totally blew up. He totally blew up Rand Paul. No, he didn't. Totally blew up Josh Hawley. No, they didn't. And what did Murphy say? Oh, the Trump voters, all they do, they're patriots, and they listen to senators, and they listen to the president. They don't listen to senators. When was the last senator you listened to? They get into the details because they're American citizens. This is, once again, everybody mocks and ridicules the intelligence of the deplorables. Our next guest doesn't. He's one of the most respected guys in the Republican Party, one of the most respected guys in the conservative movement, one of the most respected people in the Trump movement. He's been on the front lines. You want to know why there weren't problems in Florida and Ohio? Because they had people out there that got things sorted over the years. Knew there were going to be problems, and it wasn't going to happen on their watch. Former Secretary of State of Ohio, and a former, a guy that is at the cutting edge, he wrote an article, YouTube, that said, hey, Monday the 14th is just another day. Doesn't end on Monday. Not Steve Bannon saying it, but it's Ken Blackwell. So I want to bring on Ken. First off, Ken, and for the folks last night, here's one of the most important things. Martha McCallum, and remember, she's no Trump cheerleader. She plays it straight. I'm not saying other people are cheerleaders, but obviously Maria Bartiromo puts forward guests, and she asks tough questions, and she puts forward, because she's a patriot. But, you're always going to get more Trump-like people on Maria. On McCallum, you don't get that. And McCallum's sitting there with her eyes wide open. She's looking at that Rasmussen thing, which is not even the worst poll. She's sitting there going, hey, there's a problem here. Because this is not a policy difference. There's 62% of Republicans, which I think is low. 30% of independents, and 17% of Democrats that think that thing was stolen and it's illegal. We've never had an illegitimate, illegal president. Even when you talk about 1876, 1824, and 1800, hey, got enough sorted out that they were always questions. John Quincy Adams and those guys never really got it off because they thought it stole it from Jackson, but it wasn't as bad as now. So Ken Blackwell, first go through your piece about why the Electoral College on the 14th is not the end-all and be-all, and then I want to ask you what we're going to do about it and how we're going to execute on stopping the steal and securing the victory on November 3rd. But go through your piece first so that we make sure that media matters. All the guys are going to hammer us that we're just crazy. I want to hear from Ken Blackwell, Ken Blackwell has a lot of things, but he ain't crazy. Okay, this is a steady Eddie. This is about as stable as you can get. So, Ken, walk us through it.
First, let me just say, Steve, that I'm a constitutionalist. And so I read the Constitution. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand the words of the Constitution. It's pretty clear. And I go to Article 2 of the Constitution, which basically says that state legislatures set the rules by which elections are carried out in their state. They, in fact, in the final analysis, can name the electors. They can deal with transgressions against their rules. Not secretaries of state, not governors, not state Supreme Courts. The Supreme Court cannot get around the fact that these state legislatures have standing and have the final authority to challenge and to name electors. And so we have to look at this as a state-by-state basis. Right now, we're talking about 7 states in general, but there's been a lot of emphasis on four states, most notably Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona. Now, what I will tell you, Steve, is that in 7 states, those 4 states that I just mentioned in particular, there are alternative slates of delegates that will be sent to the Congress. The Congress on January the 6th starts the process of certifying the Electoral College votes. There's precedent. One of the things you need to get are newspaper articles or clips of 4 years ago, this coming January the 6th, of Maxine Waters standing up on the floor of Congress saying that she needed somebody from the Senate to join her in challenging the electors. She said that Donald Trump was not a legitimate candidate, that the process that elected him was flawed. And let me just say parenthetically, in 2019, Jimmy Carter made the same argument. There's a picture in Politico where Jimmy Carter is making this case that the president was not a legitimate president, and guess who's standing in back of him? Stacey Abrams. Look at that. There you go. And so this is not unprecedented. What I want to tell you is that we now know that there are more than a dozen members of the House who are ready to challenge these delegations. There is a growing number. I think there are probably 3 solid senators who will challenge the electors from their states. I'm not sure that they will go beyond their states, but I think we can create the pressure and the demand that this be prosecuted on the 6th, that we in fact can make sure that those folks who are electors for Trump, who won, if you count legal ballots, won this election. Let me just take Wisconsin. There were 220,000 votes that violated Wisconsin election law. The margin of victory for Biden in Wisconsin was 20,000. If the state legislature says that those ballots should have been thrown out, Trump wins, his electors should be seated. And we can make the case, as Peter has done, in battleground states and where there's evidence, as he indicated, mountains of evidence. And let me again say parenthetically, none of these cases decided by these courts have been decided on the merits of the evidence. They've been thrown out for not meeting procedural standards, or the argument has been that those bringing the charges don't have standing. He is absolutely right. There's a mountain of evidence, and we need to prosecute this case on January the 6th, and we should send a message to the Republican Party. They want us to believe, the left and the mainstream media, that Donald Trump, as evidenced by results, had long coattails but no coat. As I've told you before, it is as if we've gone through the looking glass with Alice. And
Ken, hang on one second. We're going to ask you to stay over. We're going to take a short commercial break. We got to get more of this. Ken Blackwell, one of the most esteemed members of the conservative movement, the Trump movement, the Republican Party, just a historic figure. We're going to return with Ken Blackwell in the War Room in just a minute.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
The President of the United States on fire today on Twitter. We're going to get into all of that. I want to return now to Ken Blackwell, but I want to say something. We'll try to get this up maybe in the second hour. Before, let's do gradations. Before we call out the Insurrection Act, okay? Before we do that, we focus on these Republican legislatures in Wisconsin, in Georgia, in Arizona, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania. I'm just throwing out some random states, just randomly. Before we get to the Insurrection Act, why don't we focus on that? So we've got Ken Blackwell, one of those. So Ken, right now, I've got two things. I want to get to your January 6th, but I like critical path and I like process. Don't we have those right now? You laid it out. It's 221,000, and the court agrees with you. Go and read the opinions of the minority in the overall opinion, and they had another opinion where they basically said we agreed that was ballot harvesting, but the campaign's got to go back and prove it. That's in Wisconsin. In Georgia, you got a raft of things, right? They're talking about 400,000 illegal votes in every category, as Smith and Cleta Mitchell lay out. Okay, you can call a special session there. And in Arizona, the whole nightmare and all of it, plus the Dominion voting system. They're doing a forensic audit right now in Maricopa County. So, Ken, do you agree that before we get to January 6th, we have special sessions? We got plenty of time. It's December 18th. I understand Christmas is normally a time people take off. Hey, Donald Trump ain't taking it off. He's not going to Mar-a-Lago, right? He's staying right here in Washington, D.C. So, Ken, what do you say to Republicans out there who say, we ought to call the insurrection, I'll do all this? What should we do with these state legislatures right now?
I think we have to be very, very clear, Steve, that this Article 2 of the Constitution gives them the authority to self-convene. They don't have to wait for a governor to convene them, to self-convene on the narrow issue of the presidential election and the electoral college. So don't let them escape and say we can't self-convene. They can self-convene, and they in fact need to take back their authority and act. It is a matter of political will. And let me just say this is a message to the Republican Party. This president helped you pick up a governorship, add to our majority of legislative chambers across the country, narrow Nancy Pelosi's margin in the House, maintain our majority in the Senate. We have to stop acting like a 90-pound weakling. We are the majority party in the United States, representing a majority of Americans, and we have to reclaim our legislative authority, our constitutional right to litigate and prosecute this case and to name the electors that should represent an accurate tally of legal votes cast. You're absolutely right. We can start that process now. There's nothing in the Constitution, nothing in the rule of law that says that they can't do it. We can't let them off the hook.
Okay, hang on one second. I want this audience to understand something. And we live this 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we've done it. I went around the country arguing this back in August and September and October. The plan is still 2020. That is the single best assessment I've heard of this entire thing. And this is what I keep saying. It's do you have the political will and the ability and the discipline to enforce your will? Ken Blackwell just laid it out. We're the majority party. And all Blackwell's saying is that we don't need to call out the troops. We don't need to do anything. Let's just act like a majority party. The people elected you throughout the nation and these state legislatures to represent the interest of these states. And Blackwell's saying, act like it. That's all you need to do. Read the Constitution and act like it. We don't need any radical solutions here. You need a solution that's laid out by our framers. Ken, this is why you need voices like Ken Blackwell in crises like this. You need the stable ones that can sit there and go, "Hey guys, what are you doing? What are you running around with your hair on fire?" This is pretty straightforward. So Ken, we got a couple minutes. Also on January 6th, the senators that purport to be part of the Trump movement, Hawley, Rubio, Cotton, Cruz, and these are great people, right? But in Loeffler and Perdue, do they have to tell the president or the country like Tuberville's now, we're going to stand and deliver on January 6th? If the state legislatures haven't taken care of this problem or haven't at least vetted, have provided a platform to vet it, we're going to vet this in the United States Senate starting on January 6th. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think those folks that you just named can prosecute this case very effectively. An evidence-based case can be made. A constitutional case can be made. This is within the four corners of the rule of law. This is within the four corners of constitutional process. And so no one should hide behind the fact that courts have not acted on the merits of these cases. We, in fact, have a separation of powers. This is not a decision for governors. This is not a decision for secretaries of state. These are decisions for legislative bodies within our constitutional republic. We must demand that folks muster the political will to do the right thing.
Ken, how do people get access to you? Probably we're going to have the article up. Everybody's got to read this article. But Ken, what's your Twitter, Parler? How do people get access to you during the day?
I have followers at Facebook. Go to my public page on Facebook. That's the best collection of my work. Or you can go to Twitter at Ken Blackwell.
You're a hero to me. You always have been. You're a patriot and you're a great American. I got to tell you, Ken Blackwell, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your thoughts.
Right back at you, brother.
In the history of this show, and I'm very proud of many of the segments, I'm very proud of many of the stories we've broken, that is one of the most important and powerful 30 minutes we've had on the show. We're going to break that down. We're going to get that to everyone. Everybody in the hashtag War Room, everybody in the live stream, push that out. Ken Blackwell is a man of character. He's a man of substance. He does not chase his tail. He's not chase rabbits. And he just laid it down right there. We're the majority party. It's time to start acting like you're the majority party. The people in this country elected you for a reason. If you do not stand and deliver, you're going to hear from those people. Ken Blackwell. We're going to take a short break. Steve Cortez in the next hour in the War Room.